All right. Hi, everybody. And we are here with Anna Maria Tosco, the Sassy Psychologist. And we have a really great topic tonight. Hi, Anna Maria.
Hey, Jen.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just enduring this winter. What about you?
Yeah, me too. Let's just get this done with already. I'm finished. I want to feel the sun on my face.
Oh, I'm ready. Oh, yeah, that sounds nice, Jen.
So I love this topic because I think we've brought it up briefly in past episodes, and I think it's something that I think can help absolutely everybody. It's all about finding mental health help, no matter what the budget. Anna Maria is going to walk us through some of what might be considered some of the more traditional ways to receive and get mental health help, and maybe some non-conventional, non-traditional ways that maybe people haven't thought of. So this must be a pretty big argument or debate about getting help for your mental health. People think, well, if I don't have a benefit package with work or anything, then I can't go and get help. So we kind of want to demystify that a bit, right?
Yeah, we definitely want to demystify. We want to be honest as well. I'm not going to deny anybody's experiences necessarily, but I hope we're going to start, like you said, with those kind of conventional ways. And within those conventional ways, I want to kind of pave the road as to who do you call? What do you say? But then when we delve into the non-conventional ways, that's where we'll see, oh, there are options I didn't consider before that could potentially be free. And I can't wait to talk about that. So that we'll talk about near the end there.
Perfect. All right. So why don't we start with a few of those traditional ways that people can get some help or find some resources for their mental health wellness?
Yes. First, I just want to say this because I'm a psychologist, so I have private practice, but I'm also a teacher. And so when I have students who come to me because they're comfortable with me and they say, hey, miss, can you help me get some help? Obviously, I can't be their psychologist, right? That's an ethical issue. But I have to sometimes walk them through the process. Who do I call? Where do I go? So I'm just starting with, if you are someone who needs help and you are either nervous or anxious or uncomfortable or unsure about making these phone calls, because it does involve making a few phone calls and talking to a few people. When somebody's struggling, let's say with social anxiety, that first step of not even getting help, of understanding where to go and who to ask about eventually getting help, is a huge step for some people. So I just want to start this with, if you don't think you have the wherewithal right now, or you're having a moment of fragility and you can't make phone calls or do a tiny bit of research, please ask for help. I just want to start there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So the traditional, the conventional way. So of course, in our public system, you would go to the CLSC. Now, listen, I want people to stay with me because people are like, I tried that, and then they log off. Please don't. I'm going to go through all of them. Okay. The CLSC is my first one. So listen, there are professionals there. They can absolutely help you, but there are advantages and disadvantages. But first, how do you do that? There's a few ways, but here are two of those ways. You actually talk to your family doctor, and your family doctor puts in the word for you, and the CLSC calls you back. You can also go to the CLSC directly, and you can talk to the people who do the psychosocial intake. So you can actually physically go to the CLSC yourself. Obviously helpful if you have a referral from a doctor. So, and they'll call you back. Now, what's the advantage? Free, definitely free. The disadvantage, I'm sure people have heard this, it's a long wait time. It's a long wait time. I'm not sure where it's at right now as we stand here in February 2022. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's oftentimes been long. The other issue sometimes is you are assigned someone and it may or may not be a match with you. So here's the thing, and you and I spoke about this briefly, when sometimes if you meet a therapist or a psychologist, it's entirely possible that they are not a match. What that means is you don't jive with them for whatever reason. They remind you of someone. It could be a whole bunch of emotional, psychological reasons why you're not a match. Like, why aren't you a match with you never got along with your neighbor. You never got along with so-and-so. Therapists are people, so you might not be a match with them. And if you're not a match, please don't give up and try another avenue. Okay. Traditionally, another one, an EAP at work. So if you have an employee assistance program at work, right, you've received communications, probably via email, about what phone number to call, and then you get a contact person, and then that contact person will guide you as to what to do for the EAP. Advantage, free with work. Disadvantage, again, there might not be a match there potentially, because again, you are given who you're given for the most part. I'm not sure how much choice you have there. Um, um, and another, potential disadvantage is that, wait, forgive me, I'm just having a brain fart right now. Did I just say match? Did I say not a match? It's possible to not have a match.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. Yeah.
Definitely happen with an EAP, not having a match. Oh yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to say. It's about seeking help through work. Sometimes people are nervous seeking help through work because they somehow feel somebody's going to know, somebody's going to find out, even though these things are kept confidential. But if you're having problems with work and you are wary or you are anxious or you are distrusting because of stuff that has gone on at work, I understand why you wouldn't want to go through work. So that was for the EAP. Next, this is two more conventional ways, okay? Mm-hmm. Student services at school. Free. I wish that I did that when I was in school. I wish I could have benefited. You know how many times I was crying in the stalls, something happened, it was interpersonal, it was social. Maybe it had to do with a breakup, maybe it had to do with friendships, interpersonal stuff, right? When we're that age, could be, of course, family, could be loads of things. There are people sitting there who are psychologists. They have drop-in hours. You can go to the reception. You can go, I think Jen, I'm not sure if everybody watching knows, but I teach in a CEGEP, and I got to tell you, the people in student services, the psychologists there, the counselors there are waiting, and they care so much about their students. So it is free. You can email them, you can drop in, you can have one of your teachers set it up for you. Man, that's what I do with my students. And I'm like, please tell me. If you need me to set it up for you, I will hold your hand, because sometimes people need their hands to be held in their initial stages, right? Student services, man, not to be underestimated in a school. Advantage free. Advantage is super accessible, easy to get to. The disadvantage, of course, once again, is you are limited to the pool of people who work at your school, and you are also seeking it at school. So if somebody is having an issue with school, with going to school, with some of their teachers at school, there might be a little conflict there if you have to seek your therapy at school. So that might be a disadvantage. And last, in terms of the conventional ways, there is the private system. So what that means is you call up either a private clinic or you call up a psychologist who works individually, and you set up a meeting. The advantage is you get an appointment quickly. You get the kind of attention, even like between sessions, that you wouldn't get in the public system, right? Phone calls, sometimes text messages, right? You get the kind of attention that you're needing, like easy access to your person. But of course, as we all know, one of the disadvantages there is it can be very expensive. So right now it goes from $80 an hour approximately to people, let's say, coming right out of school. And it could go up, depending on how much experience, to 160, 170, 180, 200, and in some cases between 200 and 300 per hour. It's no secret. When clients or people say to me, "Oh my God, private services are expensive, Anna Maria," my answer is, I'm not making a fool of them. I want to tell them the truth, and the answer is yes. Yes, it is expensive. So you have all of the advantages that come with that, and there are also ways around it. Insurance. So if you are seeing a psychotherapist, in some insurance companies will refund a portion of that. Definitely, if you are seeing a psychologist and you're being issued a psychologist receipt, a large portion of that is covered by your insurance. And then some people are saying, hey, I don't have insurance. What do I do? There's another thing you can do. It involves phone calls, though. It involves doing a little bit of research online, telephoning some clinics. But there are clinics that operate on a sliding scale, which means you provide them with a pay stub, and they will then give you a rate based on how much you make. I can't
Wow.
give you the, yeah. Did you know that?
I had no idea. I had no idea there was a sliding scale at all. And that seems very fair in a way, right? Like you pay what you can afford. That's amazing.
Exactly, exactly. So there are some clinics that do that. But again, Jen, that would involve making some phone calls. So
Right.
when people are ready to seek help, sometimes that the idea of phone calls and doing a little bit of research can be taxing, overwhelming, frustrating. So if you find that that's the case, I urge you, please ask for help. Ask a friend to make some phone calls, a family member. There's nothing wrong with that, especially when you're in like this a moment of fragility or vulnerability. So that's what I wanted to say about private stuff.
And I would love to add, when you brought up the student services, I will fully
At
admit that
school.
I went to Concordia, and for about my first year and a half, 2 years, I had a pretty regular standing appointment with a psychologist that worked there. I was fresh out of high school in the States. I was 18, starting university, and I was completely overwhelmed. And you are so right. Super accessible. And when you say it's free, technically, you pay a portion of your tuition to cover these things.
Exactly.
You should take advantage of them.
Yes.
I went to nutritionists at school. I went to psychology. They have a whole team. And like you said, they're literally just sitting there and they want to help.
They
And when
really
you
do.
say you may not jive, some of these people are some of the most understanding, compassionate people that you'll find somebody who
Super
jives.
approachable, super
Absolutely.
empathic.
Yes.
I mean
I
that's
agree.
the reason why they chose their job, and
Yeah.
they're literally sitting there waiting for you. And I love that you said nutritionist, because yes, like when my students come to me and they say, Miss, I need some help, I need a psychologist, I direct them directly to psychological services of sorts. But student services at school, I mean, very well there could be a nutritionist, right? There's definitely career counseling. So there's a whole bunch of things, and they're just waiting for you. They want your involvement. They want to help you. So
And they
thanks for
really
saying that.
understand what you're going through because they're working with that group of students. They know what types of issues, whereas maybe if you're just going to any therapist, they might not have as much experience as the ones working in the schools. They really know and get that age group.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And actually, sorry, that's another thing too, just of the how to. I didn't talk about private services and the how to, like what to do. So there are a few things I want to say there. So sorry, we're moving. Jen was talking about school, and you walk into student services, and there's so much there. And then another conventional way that we were just talking about is private services, and there is a how to do that. So calling up clinics, yes, calling up psychologists, but I want to tell you also that here something that I recommend, because people are asking me, Anna Maria, do you have a person to refer me to, right? And so sometimes some of my colleagues are all bogged down, right? They're full. But we have a few databases here that I recommend a lot. And there are two databases in particular. One of them is the Order of Psychologists of Quebec. If you go to that website and you say, find a psychologist, you can even type in your preferences, where you live, your language preference, even gender preference of your practitioner, and then they will generate a list of people, in your area.
Okay.
That's what the Order of Psychologists. I think there you will find a lot of francophone people that way, a francophone psychologist. A way to find, again, francophone and anglophone. But what I found is when somebody's looking for English services, on the other hand, going to Psychology Today. You know how everybody reads those Psychology Today articles? Well, Psychology Today also has a database. And you type in where you're from, and then a whole list of people come up.
Amazing.
Their pictures are there. Their bios are there. And one last thing I'm going to recommend, and this is a big advantage for private services, is call them. So, I just finished getting off the phone with someone. I call it a best fit call, which is, hey, are we a match? We might not be 100% correct in our first 15 minutes, but I mean, you know how it is. You can tell if you jive or if this is going to work. within the first 5, 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes just getting a good vibe is enough of can have a curative effect, can be therapeutic in itself. And then you add on the therapy and it's amazing. So with private services, you can call these people in advance and say, look, I'm not ready to book with you. Let's talk. Or show me your LinkedIn page. I'm going to research you a little bit. I tell my I tell potential clients that all the time. Go to my LinkedIn page. Check me out. Check out my bio. Check out the things that I've done. Check out my activity on LinkedIn to get a better idea of who I am. And that's a great thing to do for private services.
Love that. Okay. So now there's maybe what we would call, we didn't know if it was the right word to say non-traditional, but maybe some things that people haven't thought of to seek out.
Right. Yeah, these non-conventional ways. So these ways are free. The downfall, though, before I start is you need to do a bit of research. Again, the phone calls. I said that before, too, with some of the conventional ways of getting therapy. But these non-conventional ways, they're non-conventional. You're going to have to maybe do a few more phone calls, a bit more research, but I'll tell you more here. Okay. So first of all, I think we all know, I hope we all know at this stage, that if things are desperate, two things. First of all, I want to say if things are very, very desperate, just like if things were desperate, you fell on the ice outside, you have a concussion, you're going to the ER. I want people to know that there are crises and emergencies in mental health as well. Okay. And yes, suicidal thoughts, definitely, probably at the top of my list for sure. But sometimes you're swimming in your symptoms of anxiety, for example. You're swimming in panic. And yeah, it would be great to say, hey, just breathe and calm down. Well, sometimes you're really underwater and the medication isn't working and you've lost weight. What really puts the pressure on when I hear this is, hi, I've lost 20 pounds in a month, or I'm not eating anymore.
Or not sleeping, or
you're not eating anymore. So that's very dangerous. You could very well have a right to go to the ER. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Another thing too, in terms of people who are in crisis and it's 3:00 in the morning, what do? There are an abundance of helplines that exist. And with some of these helplines, there are even texting options as well, because now I'm thinking, especially with the younger generation, there's an ease with texting. And some of these helplines offer that. Okay. So this is 24-hour services. Tel Aide, Tel Jeune, Interligne, which is an LGBTQ plus phone helpline. So there's all of these different things that could happen if you are in crisis and you desperately need to talk to somebody because there's no one in your circle. Okay, here's a non-conventional one. And I'd love to know your opinion about this, Jen. The Facebook forums, Facebook support groups. Now, I know that there are people out there maybe who are saying, absolutely not. Do you see what these people say? And this is like online stuff and there are trolls and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you've been on any of these forums, but I have to tell you, it seems as though people gravitate to these forums when they really need help. And it seems as though these admins are caring people who want to start some kind of community. Look, maybe they're starting a business too. Okay, maybe there is some advantage there for these admins who are starting these groups, but oftentimes there is a personal investment there. Like I have a friend who, I just want to give some examples of some groups, and she'll be happy that I mentioned it here, I'm sure, like co-parenting moms sharing the struggle. So this is a friend of mine. She started this group a couple years back. And the last time I spoke to her about it, I think it was this summer, and it was already up to like 5,000 people in this Facebook forum. She's an admin. She takes care of these people. She watches out for any kind of aggression or trolling or anything like that. And people are getting something out of this group, right? So what do you think about that, Jen, the Facebook forums and support groups?
I think you have to be heads up about it for sure, because you don't, again, it's a really easy platform for people that want to be difficult to sort of have the stage. But I would completely agree that using some basic common sense, you figure out really quickly what those groups are, and it's immediate, right? There's so many members on these Facebook groups that you can put, just a vent session out there and be like, oh, I'm having a hard time. And you'll feel camaraderie because people will chime in and go, I'm right with you. I know, whether I'm as a parent, or I also know of a woman who was widowed a few years ago, and she's members of like different grief groups that are on Facebook for people that have lost spouses, or they're trying to help their kids navigate losing a parent.
Right.
So I completely agree with that. I think that it can bring a little bit more, where you feel like other people get what you're going through. You're not alone in your struggle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also if let's say you're feeling this moment of fragility, or let's say you're like, again, desperate, you're looking for help, and you don't have the wherewithal to kind of screen, because let's be honest, like you said at the beginning, it would be important to screen first. If you're not in the state of mind to be able to screen these groups to see if it's good for you, have somebody else take a look. Right? That might be an interesting way to go.
I thought you said scream.
No.
You need to have a scream moment, and you can vent instead on Facebook, but screen, yes.
Screen, yeah.
Screening process is very important in Facebook groups. Yes, I agree. Yes. But like I said, I do think you pick up pretty quickly whether it's being monitored and the temperament of the people on that group.
Agreed.
And it can be a huge positive.
It really could.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, nonprofit organizations. I just want to give, like, I don't know how many nonprofit organizations exist here in Quebec or in Canada. I would have to do some research myself. But Jen, let's use the example of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, right? Because back in November for World Prematurity Day, we had Fabiana on, who's the president of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. And so now, because of being a psychologist, and because after having a premature baby, I'm actually a great candidate to be one of the psychologists on staff at CPBF. So I am doing some of that work. The families that are coming to therapists or psychologists at CPBF are not paying anything, right? So that's what's interesting about nonprofit organizations, is you have people behind the scenes, people like Fabiana, it's people who are personally invested and care about the cause, who create these foundations, who work for nonprofit organizations, who find help for people in need in a smart, economically sound, caring, empathic way. But in order to find these organizations, you do have to do a little bit of research. You have to look up Anxiety Foundation of Canada, Anxiety Association of Canada, nonprofit organization for depression. Check that out, do that research, because look, right? The CPBF is a great example of that. Sometimes you find a nonprofit organization that not only gives you education and resources, but then, services as well for free. Please do that research. And something that we'd be doing, the viewers a disservice if we didn't mention Ami Quebec. Right? Ami Quebec offers, like I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure I said it, to give them credit here. Nonprofit organization that helps families manage the effects of mental illness through support, education, guidance, advocacy. And not only do they help people with mental illness, but they also have support groups for families of individuals with mental illness. I mean, this is an incredible organization, a nonprofit organization.
Just this week, too, on Suburban Parents Talk, we had somebody on from the Strongest Families Institute, and they were a nonprofit as well that has had thousands of Canadians go through their different support groups and stuff like that. So you're absolutely right that that's probably an untapped avenue for mental health wellness and getting help and resources, for sure.
Definitely. And again, I don't know about the world of nonprofit organizations. I don't know how, if they come and go, but it seems as though some of these organizations really have their grips in the community and society. And with just a little bit of research, a few phone calls, ask, go out there, find what's out there in terms of the nonprofit organizations, because all of those people who are saying, hey, look, seeing a psychologist is really expensive. There are some avenues, but you just have to do a little bit of research. And I would say look for, Facebook groups, Facebook forums, but especially these nonprofit organizations that might be able to give you services for free. CPBF is being sponsored by companies. And these companies are funding the CPBF so that they can give their clientele free services, Jen.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they're doing it, right? Like, so they're there to be used. Use them, you know?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
those were the kind of more non-conventional ways that can very well be free. It's just a little bit, I think the worst part of this is the research part, you know, because I had somebody say to me, "Hey, I have my family members living in Nova Scotia, and they're having an issue with their autistic child." One of the first things I did to help them is I actually kind of acted a little bit as a social worker. I'm like, let me, in Nova Scotia, nonprofit organizations, or where are they from? What city are they from? Are there any community programs?
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of research that's necessary, because you never know what's out there, or you never know what new programs or new organizations are
Right.
kind of up and coming. So really something to not be underestimated here, Jen.
And I think it's interesting that we have become a generation. I mean, when we were kids, and if our parents wanted to find resources for this, what would they be doing? They'd be pulling out the yellow pages.
Yeah,
There would
totally.
be way more research involved. This is really about sending out a couple emails and just getting that ball rolling. And actually, research today is so much easier than it has been in generations past. So as much as we build it up that it's a big process to get to the end goal of finding the help, it's really not, given our technologies and everything else today anyway, right?
Right, right.
Yeah,
And listen,
yeah.
and if there's anything I'll end on again is something I kind of said at the beginning. So it comes full circle here, whether we're talking about non-conventional ways or conventional ways. I think the hardest part right now might be the beginning, which is, where do I go? And you have to make those phone calls. You have to do a little bit of research. Even with private services, I want you to call these psychologists you are choosing from Psychology Today and see if they're a match for you. So I got to tell you, Jen, whether it's conventional or non-conventional, I think the beginning stages might be the most taxing and the most annoying, or stressful. If you need help with that, please ask, because I'm sure your friends, your family members will be okay getting on the blowhorn a little bit, doing a little bit of research, if you are busy just, trying to bring down your anxiety. Sometimes I'm talking to someone who's so anxious that I need to talk to, let's say, their spouse or their family member to say, this is what you need to do. Call this place, research this, right? Find an appointment here. So sometimes I'm actually talking to the spouse because the person is like crippled by their anxiety currently.
Right, right. Oh, such great information. I really appreciate that you did this broadcast, because I think that we've been asked on social media, and there's a lot of, preconceived notions that
Right.
mental health help is just not possible because it's not financially something that they can take on. But you kind of just proved that couldn't be any further from the truth. Yes, it can be expensive on certain routes, but there's a lot of avenues that people can take to find the help they need at the price tag that they need, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So find that.
Right.
Again, I said the worst part is probably just a little bit of research at the beginning.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you, Anna Maria, our sassy psychologist. We will put a blog post up. We actually recently had done a blog post with some resources for mental health,
We have,
health
yeah, a
and
few months
wellness.
ago, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to repin that to the top of our Healthy Life blog section to make sure that people can access it
Great.
really easily. And I just want to wish everybody a happy March break as well, because I know
Yes.
that we're kind of in the midst of March break. So hopefully everybody's getting a nice mind rest, and will feel refreshed and ready to go next week for back to school.
You're so wonderful, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Maria, and thank you everybody for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks with another live with our sassy psychologist, Anna Maria. Bye, everybody.